Yeah, well, fun fact, the stainless steel on Cybertruck is the same stainless steel being used for Starships. The history of Tesla and SpaceX, they were basically both facing bankruptcy at the same time. And when I interviewed May, Elon's mom, she said, you
Yeah.
should choose one. And Elon being Elon, he couldn't do that. They were both his babies.
Would you ever bet against Elon Musk? While he's nowhere near a perfect person, and not necessarily perfect in business either, he's founded many companies that are considered to be among the most impactful and consequential companies in the world. Today, we'll discuss many of his most important accomplishments. Biggest, of course, is SpaceX and Starship. Yes, the pun was intended. To help us do this, I've invited Ellie Sheriff with us today. Ellie left her very successful TV reporter journalism career, which she did for 8 years, to start a YouTube channel full time. With 91,000 subscribers on her channel called Ellie in Space, she's interviewed the most important people for SpaceX, Tesla, and all things technology, including, hopefully, Elon Musk himself soon. Actually, the whole family, as she's already interviewed May Musk and Kibble Musk on that very historic day of the Starship launch. Welcome, Ellie. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to be back. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time, and you moved to Austin. You've just been powering it with your channel. So let's start with ways that Tesla and SpaceX, you've been following SpaceX very closely. And you said something like this: Cybertruck shares some technology with Starship. Let's start with that.
Yeah, well, fun fact, the stainless steel on Cybertruck is the same stainless steel being used for Starship. So, just a little fun fact for you. And Starship is what I cover closely here because it's based in South Texas. I'm here in Austin. It's about a 5.5 hour drive south of me. And so I've been at all three launches so far, and it is quite an exciting program. Starship being the world's first fully reusable rocket. Again, we're still working on the full reusability portion, but eventually this thing is going to take us to Mars.
We're going to talk about today all the accomplishments, or many of them, that Elon Musk has been able to do. Starship is possibly, right, the biggest one. Maybe tell me more about this outrageous goal that he had, and how it is that we're so close now to accomplish some more. So tell me, like, when the Starship just had their first kind of orbital flight, right? So
Yeah, so we're still working on the issues of reentry. So IFT4, the fourth test flight of Starship, we're going to have a successful reentry of Starship. And Herbert, these problems are very hard to solve, particularly when you're doing something or trying to do something that's never been done before. So, you say we're getting closer. In some ways we are, in some ways we aren't. This is going to be a really long process to finally have humans land and walk on Mars. Right now, sort of more of the focus, of course, and Starship plays a part in this, is actually our return to the moon, which unfortunately we're also seeing delays in that. And so it can be frustrating, or, people don't understand who are on the sidelines and are unfamiliar with the space industry. But these are really hard problems to solve. And if you look at the history of SpaceX has done so many things that were previously thought impossible. This whole idea of a non government agency, a private space company being able to reach orbit, totally totally impossible previously thought. And so now we have the Falcon 9. Do you like my props? That are running like clockwork. We don't even really get that excited about Falcon 9 launches anymore, or cover it nearly as much as we cover Starship, because they're happening all the time. And so it's interesting. And not only are Falcon 9 launches happening all the time, but they're reusing the boosters. So that is also something that we thought was only, in science fiction novels. And now we're seeing that happen on a regular basis. In fact, if you're lucky, you could see a double booster landing with Falcon Heavy. Those are more rare, but SpaceX is doing things and pushing boundaries, and, just doing the unprecedented. And so I think we see that with Tesla. And it's so great to have a visionary like Elon, who, isn't willing to take no for an answer and questions why things aren't being tried. He didn't originally set out with this idea to go to Mars, but trying to see NASA's plans for going to the red planet, found out that there really were no plans. So, took it upon himself to get that started. And, before Tesla, electric cars, not that sexy, right? And so it's great that we have Elon in our lifetime, and it's hard to imagine what the world would be like without Tesla and SpaceX.
Yeah. So I saw one of the videos that you did. It was pretty cool. You interviewed Tom Mueller. He's one of the very first people that's worked with Elon. What does he say about what it's like working with Elon? What is it like working at SpaceX?
Yeah.
What is the culture like in SpaceX? How do they accomplish what they do? Like on my channel, most of my viewers are Tesla, enthusiasts. We know everything about Tesla, but tell us a little bit more about how SpaceX works, because it's very likely that the way he's structured and the way he creates a culture there is the same thing that he's done with all these other companies.
Right. Well, and it makes me wonder who has more burnout, a Tesla employee or a SpaceX employee.
Yeah.
Particularly when SpaceX was getting started, it was really hard to get the Falcon 1, not the Falcon 9, the Falcon 1 rocket successful and proven. In fact, they originally only had 3 attempts that they were going to go for. Third one wasn't successful, so they somehow were able to extend it. And if you know the history of Tesla and SpaceX, they were basically both facing bankruptcy at the same time. And when I interviewed May, Elon's mom, she said, you
Yeah.
should choose one. And Elon being Elon, he couldn't do that. They were both his babies. And so he, stuck to what mattered and risked it all. I mean, gosh, like we can learn so many lessons from this man, right? If we could
Yeah.
just implement a fraction of his mindset, right? But you talk about Tom Mueller and the culture of SpaceX, and it's hard. You will burn out if you're not completely dedicated to the mission. And so Tom now is the CEO of Impulse Space, and they're working on sort of tugboat like transportation in space.
Wow.
Another hard issue to solve, but a bit more laid back of a work culture at Impulse Space. Granted, very impressive, talented people and engineers that he's hiring. But one of, and you can watch my interview where I can paraphrase some of what Tom Mueller said, because Tom Mueller was actually SpaceX employee number 1, not
Wow.
Elon Musk. The way that the paperwork, came to be, Tom Mueller was
Mm.
actually the first SpaceX employee. And he was so incredibly important because Tom is actually the designer of the Merlin rocket engine, what is
Wow.
powering the Falcon 9, so instrumental in the success of SpaceX. So I really call him the second most important person to SpaceX aside from Elon Musk. And so Tom doesn't sugarcoat it. And Tom is a very soft spoken, very humble guy. And he says, yeah, Elon's hard to work with. Elon, he went to Burning Man with Elon a few times and says, Elon's chill, laid back. But if you're working with him or you're working underneath him, it's a different story. And, if you've read Walter Isaacson's biography, you know this. But I think that, it's important to realize that someone who's going to be successful and make things happen is not always going to be nice. But because of his drive and the way he is, which a lot of people just don't have it in them to be like Elon or even be sort of as direct, that takes a special kind of person. And had Elon not led either SpaceX or Tesla, I don't know if either of them would be here.
So you said earlier that SpaceX and Tesla, they're the two babies. Elon loves them both equally. But isn't it true, or I guess my assumption is that his overarching goal, his overarching mission is to get to Mars because he believes that humanity needs to
Yeah.
have that second plan B. And then
Yeah.
to get to Mars, though, of course, you need to make sure that Earth is safe. And he's got Elon Tesla working on that mission, sustainable energy. But a lot of the technologies that Elon focuses on, it seem to come together and work together for eventually Mars. Like, what's your thinking about? Is it pretty obvious that the first flights will be with the humanoid bots with Optimus? Do you think that he's planning on, a cobot scenario with humans and the bots together, or what? Tell me more about the plans for the moon and then Mars.
Yeah, I think a lot of this Mars talk is actually still quite far off. I mean, they have so many things to nail before we can even get into the idea of, well, and even Optimus bot is still being improved as we speak. So it's great that all of these things are happening at the same time. I think that, yes, the idea, if you see Optimus back there, we have a Tesla bot in the background here. And so the idea is that, yes, we could use robots to help us create and build the infrastructure for Mars so that by the time humans get there, we have something set up, maybe not a McDonald's, but we have some stuff where,
Hmm.
it would be very hard. It's going to be a very, very hard journey to Mars. And, I think that's why there's so many doubters because people believe it's not possible. And I think Elon's been quoted as saying, roughly it's barely possible. It's that hard. It's like there's barely a possibility, but if there is a possibility, he's going to do it. And so, right now we have several more things in the near term that we need to focus on. One of them being, we want these chopsticks. If you can see here,
Yes.
there's the Mechazilla is what they're calling it. And so these are the chopsticks. Sorry, my thing is all wobbly, that are supposed to catch the booster, which again kind of sounds impossible, but
Yeah.
we know that they've proven that reuse of a booster is possible with Falcon 9. And so that's one of the major milestones. We want to get to a point where we can deploy Starlink satellites via Starship, and eventually we want to have humans on Starship. But man, I think that's going to be like many, many years away at the end of the decade, if not, in the mid
Mhm.
2030s.
Okay. So one of the things that got you excited and got you started when you left your journalism career was because of Starlink, right? You got a
Starlink,
Starlink
yes.
thing, and then you did a very first YouTube video on that, and then it just kicked you off because you're so interested. So tell me more about Starlink. That is happening now. It's tell me how many countries you can access it to. I think uh, planes are now buying Starlink so you can access and watch full-time movies. Uh, Tell me more about Starlink. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started covering Starlink in the Better Than Nothing beta days. And so this is when there was a lot of interest. Some people, a lot of people still didn't know what it was. But for people that were living in rural areas and relying on Viasat or HughesNet, very mediocre ISPs, internet service providers, they were looking for, actually good service. And so the Better Than Nothing beta days is when Starlink was being rolled out to very select areas. And so it happened to roll out to my area in Washington state, and I was able to try it out. And that video got a lot of attention. So I was from that point on, I started covering, okay, it's available here and here, and here's an update about it. And I feel like it has advanced so much since the beginning of my channel. I actually haven't
Mhm.
even been as focused on giving updates. I know there's, I think millions of customers now. I think it's in, like s- at least over 60 countries. I haven't
Mhm.
been keeping as much to date with that because now I'm focused on Starship, and because Starlink, like you said, it's not only all over the globe now. We have that agreement with T-Mobile to eliminate dead zones, which is going to be fantastic, particularly if you're doing outdoor adventures like I did a lot of, and it's so unsafe if you don't have service and there's an emergency. We're seeing it on planes now. We're seeing it on cruises, trains. I mean, you name it. Starlink. I think the next step that I'll be really excited about is when you can have a Starlink that's the size of an iPad. And I was hearing from a Starlink employee many, many months ago that they were working on that. Then I heard that that had been paused, but that will be great because as it is now, the dish has gotten flatter and smaller, but it's still quite bulky, and you still have, a bunch of cords, and it's not portable yet. And so yes, you can use it in RV mode. Maybe you're taking it around the country and you can roam with it, But I want to see the day when it's truly portable, because I think that that is going to be, you know, more of a game changer. It already is. So I can't say it's not a game changer, but as far as like being as, uh closely in tune of what's going on, Starship seems to be what people really care about right now.
Yeah, there. I had a viewer send me this note that I thought was pretty interesting, and he said, "Imagine, like he believes that Robotaxi plus Starlink plus XAI and Grok, all of this is going to come together to create an incredible experience."
Yeah.
So, do you think that there's a chance that cars, Tesla's cars, I've seen some Cybertrucks put in the Starlink. So if you're saying that they, they said that it might be paused, but if it was become smaller, like the size of an iPad, maybe you can actually have it just every single car would have access. Now you have high speed internet, just like the planes could, and you can watch, full entertainment. Um, I don't know if you need that much bandwidth, but it powers all of it together. Is that something you think is where they're headed with Starlink? Is something like even every single car might have access to it, or is even needed?
Well, I will say it's interesting how many interviews Elon does using Starlink while on his jet with like
Mm.
no latency. And
Hmm.
like really perfect connection. So I think Starlink, has a lot of use cases. Obviously, if we were all able to make phone calls on planes, that might be kind of annoying. We're all on FaceTime. So, I don't know how that's going to play out. But I think that just having that as a possibility, whether you're, in the water, in the sky, um, again, is helping us, you know, fill that digital divide, have better connectivity. And so I think that it's going to be very important for our future. Speaking of, use cases for it, they're going to be testing that out during the Polaris Dawn mission. And
Mm.
this will also have the first ever private commercial spacewalk. And so they're testing out a lot of incredible things. This should be happening this summer. That launch has been delayed, as like I said, many things are delayed in the space industry. But you know about delays. Cybertruck was delayed for, a long time. So it's just it's something that we have to be patient for. But I think Starlink will not only benefit us here on Earth, it's going to benefit us in space once we
Yeah.
start
So,
really venturing out there.
yeah. So what's the plan for the moon again? You said that was delayed too, but so you just said now that Starlink's going to be tested in the Polaris Dawn. Jared Isaacman, I did an interview with him, and he's going to be, shepherding that as well, right? Captaining that. And
Yes.
then, so they're going to test Starlink. What are they going to test for? But then, do you think that there will be in the moon a base, which is the goal,
Yeah.
internet access on the moon, which you'll need, and then somehow connect, right? Connectivity between, make FaceTime calls
Yeah, I
to
mean,
the
I
moon.
know I know that Elon announced, in his recent SpaceX presentation about they want to build a permanent moon base. In fact, he
Yeah.
commented on one of my shorts that I put up on X the other day, saying we want to establish a permanent base on the moon. And so, how is Starship involved?
Yeah.
You know, with NASA and SLS. Well, SpaceX was selected for the Human Landing System, or the HLS.
Hmm.
I think a $2.9 billion contract to develop the Human Landing System. So it's a very complicated way of doing it. And some people have said, well, we went to the moon over 50 years ago. Why is this so hard to go back? And I think
Yeah.
people need to understand that the way we're trying to go back is not just a flags and footprints mission. We're not
Hmm.
just going there to spend a couple hours, walk around, put a flag, wave to the camera. This is an idea of making it sustainable, so that it's a place that we can go to often and stay, and then have the moon sort of be a hub for deeper space missions like
Hmm.
Mars, etc. We need a way to do orbital refueling, right? Because there's there's only so much fuel that we can use to get to one place. Space is big, space is deep. And so again, a lot of really complicated problems. I'm sure your viewers can tell I don't have an engineering or science background, but talking to experts, like the author of Liftoff, the story
Hmm.
about SpaceX, he thinks that the what they've gone with as far as Artemis is a good plan, but it's more complicated and it's going to take more time.
So what is the plan right now? What's the goal? When is it going to be first an orbital around the moon, or is it going to go straight in, or what's the plan?
Right now in November of 2022, we
Mhm.
had the first launch of this rocket right here. This is the
Okay.
SLS
Starship.
rocket, and this
Yeah.
was the Artemis 1 mission, which I happened to be there in person. It was
Yeah.
really cool. It's very bright. And so the second mission is actually it has slipped. And so the second mission is going to involve crew,
Oh.
which you want to get right because there's, human souls on board, right? And so they want to do a flyby of the moon. Now
Mhm.
they wanted the third mission to be actually landing on the moon. It sounds like there's no way in heck that
Mhm.
this is going to happen. It sounds like a moon landing is going to have to slip until Artemis 4. A lot of people question, why do we even need NASA in the picture? They're
Yes.
so slow. They're so much red tape. They're always delayed and over budget. And it's complicated because there's a lot of funding that comes with NASA. And so there's a lot of like contention and sort of disagreement and just drama in the space community right now. Not only what's going on with our return to the moon, we just saw Elon comment yesterday on the Boeing Starliner mission, which again, I'll break it down if you're not a space person.
Mhm.
Right now, we have the Crew Dragon, SpaceX's capsule that has reliably given us transportation for astronauts to and from the ISS. So, Boeing Starliner is going to be a second option for having a capsule. Starliner has been delayed for many, many years now. And Elon commented on a post saying, we don't need another capsule. We need fully reusable rockets. So, kind of, throwing shade at this whole effort on Boeing's behalf to have another option for a capsule to ferry astronauts to and from the ISS. So it's a very interesting time in the space world right now.
Oh, it sounds like, and it's pretty obvious that SpaceX, very successful, but he had to negotiate and work through government entities, governments, right? Get funding, get approval, security clearance, but he did it. And of course, just a couple of weeks ago, he, the big meeting with premier, second person in charge in China, what they've accomplished with that relationship with China. And years before that, of course, just even establishing Giga Shanghai, having a presence in China, it's his negotiation, it's his ability. You know what I mean? It's like this guy is the most startup, most private, most get things done, and yet he's also very capable of dealing with bureaucracy and all that. Do you have any comments on that and how that's even done on SpaceX?
I do think it's interesting that people seem to forget that when SpaceX was just starting, they
Mhm.
absolutely had to land like a government contract. They had no funding otherwise, right? And so it seems as though, maybe that was understood before, and now SpaceX has become so successful and so large that people forget, that NASA is relevant in any way. So, um, yeah, I beyond that, I think it is interesting because I don't think Elon's a fan of bureaucracy. I think bureaucracy has, stifled many industries and especially space. But he is, I guess, has a way with words.
He has a way with words. He can motivate people to do things that they would not have normally done. That's
Yeah.
his special skill. Um, so a lot of people say that, the reason why SpaceX is so successful is you've got Elon, then you've got Gwynne Shotwell, who kind
Yes.
of has got Tim Cook kind of. I don't know. I don't know. You tell
Right.
me what her role is there. Others
Right.
tell me that she's actually not operational, managing the operations of the company, but actually doing a lot more of the, handshaking and management of the
Mhm.
bureaucracy. But people say, you know what? Tesla needs a Gwynne Shotwell. We need a second person in charge. Do you think that that's true, or tell me how Gwynne, what her role is in SpaceX, and do you think that would be useful for Tesla?
Yeah, I think everyone that I've talked to who has worked for SpaceX, again, these are all former employees because current employees, other than Elon, can't do interviews with me, but has said that Gwen is just so essential and really compliments Elon well, and has just she's really been a powerhouse for SpaceX. And the fact that she's a woman makes it even better
Yeah,
for
the best.
me as a woman. There's
Mhm.
not a lot of female representation in the space industry, but I feel like the dichotomy of Elon and Gwen, kind of Elon, serious and maybe a little bit intimidating, and then Gwen is she was a cheerleader at one point, so right,
No
and so
way.
yeah, so she cheerleader slash engineer. She's a very smart woman, and we don't really see her interviewed that much either, and it's a shame. I've tried to interview her a few times, reaching out to people at SpaceX, and she's always busy, which is understandable. So we kind of get tidbits here and there on what she's doing. We know that she did take over operations down at Starbase a while ago, and then Kathy Leaders also took a management role down at Starbase. So we have two women now, helping get things done down at Starbase. And I mean, there's no doubt that the leadership at Starbase is incredible. They are moving so fast, and every single day that landscape
Mhm.
is changing. So much stuff is going on. People are working around the clock. You talk about burnout, those people are working 14 hours a day sometimes. And I think I'm potentially it's even worse, not worse, but more hardcore. Elon likes that word hardcore down at SpaceX than Tesla. I don't know. I might get canceled for saying that. But seeing, first of all, if you've never been to Boca Chica, it is not a walk in the park. The mosquitoes are, everywhere and terrible, and it's hot and it's humid and it's sticky. And they're working these crazy hours because the clock is ticking. And the clock is ticking particularly for Elon because of this idea of the Fermi paradox. If the aliens aren't here, then maybe we are the only ones here. And what does
Mhm.
that mean? Well, we need to preserve this light of consciousness. And you've heard him say it before. And so I think that it's frustrating to see, and this is, I've been covering space news for a couple years now, and I see people in the space community. I think that's why so many people are like team SpaceX and screw NASA, screw Blue Origin, whatever, because they see SpaceX getting things done. They see SpaceX, willing to blow things up, willing to rapidly reiterate, not having just this huge lapse of time in between launches. I mean, it's it's a very different culture than NASA, and I understand a little bit why NASA needs to be more cautious. But I think that SpaceX, is changing things for the better and hopefully motivating. Actually, they motivated a lot of startup companies in the private space sector, and that was just not a thing before SpaceX.
One of the things that I love about you is you actually travel the world. You travel to locations. Tell me about the launching pads, and are they building a city?
Down at
That's
Starbase.
yeah, near Starbase. And how do you think that that effort that they're doing there is going to be, so, planning ahead of what they might do in Mars? How unique is this self-sustaining city that they're doing?
Well, I know that, they need employees down there. They need people to commit to moving themselves, their families, to work in that hot, sticky climate in South Texas to build these starships. And, if you have the choice between working in, Hawthorne, California at SpaceX or South Texas, I think South Texas is going to be a harder sell. And so, when they first started, you're seeing they have restaurants on site for the employees. I was lucky enough to eat at one of the restaurants very early on before they kind of made it less accessible for friends and family. And they have a daycare, the Ad Astra School, which I think has changed the name now, but basically, a private school for the kids of the SpaceX employees. And now you're hearing what you're talking about, and it's still in development. This idea that they're going to have, kind of a mall and restaurants. I'm not sure if that is open to you and me or if that's just for the SpaceX employees. again, I think a lot of that news broke actually was I was in Japan. But the idea that they're expanding on, facilities and amenities and attractions for people that, might have to move their family down there for several years to work on this mission and devote a lot of their, lives to this cause, which is very honorable. So I think that they're trying to improve the area because before SpaceX, there really wasn't much going on down there. There was Boca Chica Beach, it was kind of like a dusty old beach town. I mean, it has changed so dramatically, and so they're trying to improve the area. They're trying to improve it not only for the citizens of Brownsville and Cameron County, but also for the people that are working down there and living there.
But didn't you also cover like the actual housing structure, some of the more futuristic ones, simpler, cheaper, that kind of thing?
The housing at Starbase.
Yeah, I thought that they
Yeah.
were pretty unique at how they're built.
I haven't covered much of that. I know that they have like a section of Airstreamers. They have
Mhm.
been expanding like the housing for families and executives down there. It looks like there's a lot of construction, but I haven't covered that too specifically. So you may be thinking of someone else. I
No, no, no. I
you
was
may
thinking
be,
of Boxable, which
yeah.
you did a cover. I thought maybe that was
So
just a separate company, separate thing, nothing to do with these
so
guys.
here's the thing. I've never been able to find the boxable unit, the boxable casita
Oh,
down
gotcha.
at SpaceX.
Okay.
Boxable sent me a video of one of those casitas on a truck being pulled through SpaceX or
Hmm.
Starbase. So that was confirmed. Where they offloaded it, I'm not exactly sure. They sent me a video of that. I've never been able to find it down there.
Hmm.
And I've never seen, any casitas down there. So either the one that they sent them wasn't useful or I just haven't found it. But I have no idea what's going on with that. It's something that I've actually been sort of trying to figure out what's going on because it is my most watched video on my channel, almost a million views. And
Yeah.
that shows that there's a lot of interest in,
Yeah.
affordable housing.
Hmm.
But where they're at right now with production and what's actually going on, I think is maybe not. I think there's more than what they're saying.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm interested in that is because I feel like you can almost predict the next business that Tesla and Elon's going to do. And I think it's going to be, right, house, some sort of easy way to create a housing structure because he needs that in Mars.
Right.
He needs that to kind of create a sustainable energy kind of, city, fully sustainable. He's probably going to do some sort of food. I don't know if you've ever given that thought of how would you actually do food in Mars and then maybe some sort of solve global world hunger here on Earth, right? Have you
Yeah.
given any of that thought or and have you heard anything from anybody? Because you have interviewed Kimball Musk also.
So I interviewed him for about a minute
Yeah.
on the roof of Margaritaville. So, I asked him a few questions. I didn't ask him all the questions that I wanted to. He is
Mhm.
actually opening a new restaurant here in Austin called The Kitchen.
Yeah.
And that opening has also been delayed, our favorite
Mhm.
word of this
Mhm.
interview. And so I
Mhm.
wanted to go cover that because he also has an idea for growing food on Mars. So
Mhm.
he would be a great person to talk to about that. And I'm still trying to figure out how to get a hold of him to talk to him about that. But that is definitely part of like his mission. He wants to, make food healthier here on Earth, but also has a vision for Mars.
Okay. We've covered quite a bit. So obviously the other thing that Elon has accomplished or trying to accomplish in the middle of it is, saving free speech. He bought Twitter, turned it into X. It's going to be the everything app. Tell me about your experience with X. You were just in Japan. Tell me about that. Because X is very big in Japan, Twitter, right?
Blew my mind. I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I went around actually with my friend who is Japanese, who I actually met there, for the first time. And so I was like, great, I have an interpreter. And I was like, we'll go ask people what they think of Elon Musk. So I didn't ask, she asked,
Yeah.
and then translated for me. And not a lot of people knew about SpaceX, but almost everyone knew about X. And so I don't know why I didn't think that it was big in Japan. It seems to
Hmm.
be very big in Japan. I took a
Hmm.
clip from our interview talking about the declining birth rate in Japan, and that has,
Hmm.
500,000 impressions now because Elon commented on it. And
Hmm.
so X as a creator, I feel like it's getting better in terms of monetization, but it's not quite where YouTube is at. But I think that there's a lot of promise on X, and the fact that we're actually getting paid. People that, especially if they're shit posting and they're getting paid
Yeah.
to like, have fun, right? This
Yeah.
is a crazy concept, but people sometimes complain, "Oh, well, I really didn't make that much money." And I understand that, but also like you at one point you would not make any money because it just wasn't monetized. So, it's something that like look, it hasn't been X for that long. Let's be real. So,
Hmm.
I think that it's changing a lot. I know that they have a beta video monetization program. I
Hmm.
may or may not know more about that, but so they're trying to find different avenues to, help X creators. And some people criticize me saying, well, why are you posting your stuff on YouTube too? And it's like, well, because if
Yeah.
you're a content creator, why wouldn't you try to monetize every platform? And also, I'm not making enough money on X to like quit
Not
YouTube,
yet.
people. So calm down.
Hmm.
But
I posted on both. And the
yeah,
the actual question is, why are you posting on X when you're not yet getting monetized for it, but you're just preparing for it? So I've been posting a video every single day for like at least 6 months, if not a year now, on X. I
right,
might be one of the most prolific video uploader on X, because these are long form videos. I did
right.
watch that video that you did. That was great, when you were walking around Japan with
Yeah,
your translator person and
yeah.
asking people what do they know. Yeah, X is. I think Elon has said this several times, that Japan is their number two most, like the next country after the U.S., which is the most people or usage of X.
Why?
Which is, again, I don't know why. There's probably some reason that we don't know, but
Yeah.
they are, like, especially in Tesla too. Well, no, just X users, not necessarily Tesla community. Yeah.
Speaking of Tesla,
Yeah.
I saw way more Teslas in Europe than I saw in Japan. I saw
Yes. Yeah.
hardly any. Like, so
No.
like, I saw
Yeah.
maybe, like, 3 the
Yeah.
whole trip, and I was there from April 7th to April
Yeah.
25th. And I
Yeah.
traveled all throughout the country, so what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, Toyota, and yeah, that's the last place I think it'll come.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah. So since you were there in Japan, tell me about that. As you know, my favorite area as well. What was it that surprised you the most in terms of, they're just forward thinking, their technology?
yeah, I mean, my gosh, they do so many things so much better. Their subway system, their bullet
Mhm.
trains,
Yeah.
just the ease of public transportation. You load a transit card on your phone and you scan, and there's no delay, and people are just scanning and going about their business. And you see children riding on the subway by themselves, 6 years old, 7 years old, maybe. And it's like, this would be a crime in New York City, but here it's actually encouraged. And these kids are
Yeah.
okay. This is a safe place. This is a clean place. And there's stuff to be said for like the technology and the bullet trains or whatever, but it's more about this sense of like respect within the community. I
Mhm.
mean, these people respect each other, and they're not gonna, graffiti, on things, and just like, uh, there was a quote from Jimmy Kimmel, who he got back from Japan just as I was getting into Japan, and so I
Oh,
had seen
really?
it on my phone.
Yeah.
He's like, "Coming back to America,
Yeah.
Americans are filthy and disgusting." And I'm like, "Well, that's a little harsh, but
That's a
kind
little harsh, but yeah, there's some.
of true, right?" And so,
Yeah.
I think I have a massive respect for Japan. I'm really glad that we were there for the time that we were, because it gave
Mhm.
us, time to basically not just go to Tokyo, Kyoto, also to
Yeah.
Nara, also
You
to
ex
Hiroshima,
you
Fuji.
extended your trip, right? So it's like
Oh,
3
yeah.
weeks, did you say? That's great.
Yeah,
Great.
almost 3 weeks, and,
That's
I
wonderful.
extended it because, when you're there,
Yeah.
you're adjusted to the time zone already, you gotta make the most of it, and,
Uh,
the exchange rate was massively in our favor, so it made sense,
so the way I'm thinking about it is, like, Japan in many ways, first of all, okay, it's a dichotomy. Lots of very opposite things. So it's not the perfect, like it might look perfect from the, the first view of it, but when you dig in, right? It's very traditional, yet it's very modern. It's very peaceful, yet it's also kind of very violent in certain ways. There's just lots of things, right? Like they're very peaceful, but you go into downtown and into the cities and you're like advertisement and people screaming at you and all that. So it's like, so it's not like this, obviously perfect utopia, but I see it Japan as a potential example of a utopian future. And for example, right, you walk like crazy. I walk like crazy when I was there because you don't need the cars because it's built for people, movement, massive number of people, and that's the future. That's the future we're going to see here in the US and all the world when you have robotaxi. Like I do stop and think about what the world will look like when robotaxi is kind of the dominant transportation. You're gonna not need to find parking. There was this great YouTube video that showed that there was a mistake that that laws had in terms of how much parking that they had zoned in, and they put too much pavement and too much parking requirement than what was needed. So no parking, lots more greenery, lots more parks, lots more
Right.
just people moving around, getting to where they need to, right? So it's your
Well,
yeah.
well, because there's a lot of FUD with Starship and going to Mars. I mean, there's got to be a lot of FUD with Robotaxi, right?
Oh, well, in what ways? People
People
don't
think
even think it's going to happen.
that's what
They
I'm
just say
saying.
it's never
People
going to.
thinking
Yeah,
it will never happen. It's not
never
possible,
happen.
and it's a pipe
Yeah,
dream.
yeah. I mean, that's I've repeated this so many times, but it's just people who don't like you and I. If we follow the future, right? We're
Right.
looking at what's happening. We know, like you said, the favorite word all day today was delays,
Mhm.
and delays do happen, but then the impossible becomes real,
Right.
and so
Right.
people
Exactly.
can't get that in their head. And like I've repeated this so many times, but I was in a plane 5 years ago, and the person I was sitting with said robotaxi will never happen in my lifetime. Even my friend told me that too. Never happened in my lifetime. Just impossible. And then now people will say, "Yeah, it'll happen, but 10 years." You know,
Progress. It's still
6 months
progress.
later, though, no, but it's that I guess they're not cluing in that 6 months later, they will just say, oh, yeah, yeah, maybe 2 years. You know what I mean? Like they won't realize that they even made that change. They
Right.
won't even realize that they've changed their language because progress is happening so fast, right?
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean,
Right.
do you have a optimistic view of what's going to happen in the future? Obviously, things can go really, really bad, really fast with AGI and AI, but it can also be pretty good.
Yes, I feel I am afraid of AGI and AI for sure.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
it's already yeah. I had a I haven't like talked about this, but I had a fan say that they deep faked me in
Oh my
a
God.
pornographic way. Well, first of all, why are you telling me that? But second of all,
Oh my God.
seriously?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like that's just a very small example
Yeah.
of
What can happen?
great.
Yeah.
So, my IP can be used for
Hmm.
your PP. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm making a joke
Yeah.
from.
And I get you. I get you.
Well,
But no, I
really,
mean, like, our voice can be replicated, our
that's what
image can be
I'm saying.
replicated.
How do we
Um,
know what is real? You
yeah.
know, if someone says, "Oh, Herbert, look at what he did
Hmm.
and what he
Yeah.
said," you can be
Yeah.
like, "I literally didn't do that." But if it looks
You don't
real
know.
enough, how are you going
Yeah.
to verify that?
Yes.
How are you?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you can't. No, you can't. It's going to be better than real. That's the
It
problem.
scares me. It scares me, and I think I haven't even I like don't even like to think about it because I
Hmm.
know how big of an issue it is. Like it legitimately, right? Because I don't have kids yet. I want to
Yeah.
have kids. And
Yeah.
what the hell kind of future are they going to be grown up in? Because with me getting a cell phone in fifth
Yeah.
grade or sixth grade, that was scary for my parents. But look at what kids are going to deal with now, particularly in 5 years when AI
Hmm.
has really advanced. What is our world going to look like? I have no idea. You have this idea of, dating robots, and having that be like a real thing. And there's something about that that also makes me angry. And I don't know if it's because I feel threatened as just like a human, in our like species. How could you want to date a robot over a human? Yes, we're complicated, but are we just going to remove humans? And I don't want that to happen. I guess it's, evolutionary instinct, biological instinct, but it
Mhm.
does. I think it's, it could really help us, but man, could it hurt us.
This is
Scary.
why coming back to Elon Musk and what he's accomplished, that's why it's so critical. Like we
Yeah.
need to give him the 25% control, voting control in
Yes.
Tesla because he's absolutely he can a lot of things he's predicted has happened. He
Yeah.
seems to understand the progress of technology and he's worried about AI and AGI. He went even during the Obama years, he was already there talking about this when nobody thought that AI was going to be a thing. He started OpenAI when he knew that that this was going to happen and he wanted to
Right.
make sure that one company didn't control it. And of course, irony of all ironies, OpenAI becomes bought by Microsoft, controlled by Microsoft. But he's now talking about right humanoid bots becoming sentient beings, but he loves humanity. So that he's our best hope to
Right.
protect humanity and make sure that these things are not, do whatever you can because you can't predict it, but
Well,
do what you can to prevent bad things happening, like you said, right? They should be in service of us, not the other way around. But eventually, we'll be the ants, and they'll be just so intelligent. What's going to happen there?
it's it scares me. And you say, just to touch on Elon loves humanity. Well, you and I know that, but it's amazing the amount of people that criticize him,
Yeah.
that, like
Mhm.
categorize him as though he's just a billionaire resting on their laurels. He is not that at all. And how can people say that this man, oh, did you see the picture of Richard Branson with some nude woman
Yes.
on his back? And then Elon's
Yeah.
like, well, I was working from this hour to this hour, crazy hours, but their own. But really, it's like,
Yeah.
and again, to each their own. But the
Yeah.
people that hate on Elon, yes, he's not perfect. And sure, you're not going to like agree with everything he says or does. But geez Louise, can we like
Yeah.
take a zoom out a little bit and see what this man is doing for
So
everyone?
yeah, you got into all this because of your interest in SpaceX, right? That was the key.
Yeah.
That's your major interest. And then, you discovered Elon. And do you think that it's, I don't know how to phrase this because I actually find it weird that some people don't think that he is the most consequential person.
He 100% is. No
Like
question. But who's alive right now?
live right now. Yeah, for
Who's
sure.
more influential like than Elon? Who is?
Yeah.
I'll wait.
Yeah. Yeah. I
No
know.
one.
Yeah. And so what is your list of the things that he's doing that you think is likely to be the most consequential?
I mean, for sure, Starship, once it's
Mhm.
fully operational, once they've met their objectives, and once we can actually, go to the, even just going back to the moon and staying on the moon will be kind of crazy, because we've never seen that. And then, and also proving, hopefully, people will believe that the moon landing is real at that point.
They won't.
But
They'll By that point they'll say AI. That's AI generated, right? I can't tell
oh
the
my
difference.
god, you're right. It never ends. So, so there's that. I think that like Starship and like he says this many times. Fully reusable rockets. That's the holy grail of rocketry is
Okay.
reusability. Um, so that I think is like you said, it's the number one mission. It's the most important thing, and probably here's the thing, because I've talked about this with Ryan Tanaka, who is
Yeah.
the host of Neuropod. He
Mhm.
thinks that Neuralink will be far more impactful than
Yes.
SpaceX. And he says because Neuralink is going to impact all of your loved ones and your life right here, right now on planet Earth. If you have a
Mhm.
loved one with dementia, maybe
Mhm.
someday Neuralink can fix that. Right. And
Mhm.
so I kind of agree with him a little bit just because I think it's hard for people to relate to something where it'll never be within their grasp, right? I went on a zero G flight, for example. I won a
Yeah.
contest. Not a lot of people watch that video, and I'm not surprised because most people can't afford a $10,000 ticket to ride in a zero G plane. But what could affect them is this idea that maybe a severe health condition could be improved or cured with something like Neuralink, right? So that is something that, you're hitting the emotional interest, and it's actually something tangible for you or your family.
Well, so he obviously his reason for Neuralink is to fight AGI. If you can't beat them, you
Oh
can
yeah,
join
well
them.
there's that
If
eventual goal of,
yeah,
symbiotic relationship, singularity, because we're not gonna
yeah,
AI will not take us seriously if we don't have that little chip.
yeah. But that's the thing about the Muskonomy, right? So he seems to be addressing the most important, the top most important markets out there, right? So robots is addressing the 44 trillion labor market, which is the largest market ever. Then you got energy, you got cars, then you've got AI and AGI, and now he's involved with all of that. He's also part of AGI too. Then he's got Neuralink, which is uh, right now people can't understand that, but that Nolan, very
Yes,
first
I'm
human
interviewing
to
him
yes, yeah,
on May 20th.
Nolan. Okay, great. So he's the very first human to actually have the Neuralink implanted, and he's a quadriplegic, right? So he can't move anything, but yeah, he's playing games. He's actually able to play chess. I found it very cool that while he was doing the interview, he was playing chess at the same time.
Yes,
Like that is crazy.
I'm so excited to ask him questions, and it'll be a live stream. So I feel like, this is like a really historic moment. He's like the first human in these human trials. We're at the very beginning of this, so I'm very excited to be able to talk to him about it. I mean, that's crazy. You have this brain chip in your head,
Yeah.
and it's
I
helping you.
called him like he's like an astronaut,
Yeah,
right? The very first person to actually try
yeah,
something that is just crazy.
yeah, mind blowing.
And then, so in a way, that's what that's what you're doing. You interview all these astronauts, right? You've interviewed quite a number of astronauts, and now
Yes,
you interview the very first astronaut of the mind, or
I love it. Astronaut of the mind. I love it.
yeah. I mean, he's going to be superhuman. That's
Yeah.
the irony of all things, right? If they decided to, right? The next thing that Elon talked about was solving blind, right?
Mhm.
Blind sight or something like that. That's giving people the ability to see because you connect the eyeballs directly to the brain. Um, and so then, you can have super hearing, super visions. You can even see, I think he said radar if you wanted to, things that you humans can't see, right?
That's crazy. Oh my god.
It's crazy, but we're living it. And
Well,
you're
that's
gonna be living it.
there's like criticism too, because people are like, "Oh, well, this is the conspiracy. Why is Elon at the head
Mm,
of all of these different sort of like monopolies in these industries because they're the only ones doing it?" And it's like, well, who else is succeeding? Who else is even trying? People just always want to like dog on him, and it's so frustrating.
mhm.
I think he's like some like evil genius, that has like nefarious reasons for doing these things. And I really don't see that. I mean, I've met the man. I don't see that.
Okay, so tell me about your channel and your where what you've done and where you're going next.
So my channel is Ellie in Space. I am a full-time content creator covering mostly SpaceX related news, particularly about Starship. So I've covered all three launches. And what's next is continuing to cover the development of the Starship program. I've traveled all around the country to interview certain experts in the field, and so I'm just continuing to try and grow my channel and hopefully a bigger and better product, better videos for my audience. As
Yeah,
I mean, I'm still a one-man band, so
yeah.
there is that.
But I saw that, obviously your background of being a news reporter, I've seen some of your recent videos. You've been doing this, but they're becoming very highly produced. Like I saw that one that was wonderful, right? Just you interviewing somebody, but then you give the background cover with you, that you got your B-roll. It's like
Thank
it's what
you.
you would see if you produce that for a TV show, like a news.
Yeah.
I think you did fantastic work now.
It was almost easier to make content for the news because they gave you, a 2 minute at most time slot. So it's a lot easier to really spend a lot of time editing something that's only 2 minutes versus
Yeah.
the 15-minute video. I mean, we can get, at least I can get kind of lazy. And so it's a different format. I'm not used to having this much time to like tell a story.
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job. So, I mean, you've covered quite a few things, and like you travel and you actually physically go there and you meet these people that no one interviews, but they're very important people. Who's the most favorite interview you've done so far? And I know you've done, you might actually do Elon Musk himself, but other than that, what interview do you really like that you thought was good?
God, that's so hard.
Yeah, it's like your kids. Yeah.
I really liked flying to the San Francisco area and interviewing Scott Manley, who has like 1.7 million subscribers or whatever on YouTube. He's probably the number one or number two in the space community. And then there's Everyday Astronaut. So he's up there. And he is just such a nice, friendly, funny character. He has this Scottish accent. He's very fun, very gregarious. And the fact that he let me literally come to his house and like just
Mhm.
ask him questions about space and his channel, I I think he might be my favorite. But man, that's on the spot. So I loved May
Yeah.
Musk and Kimball Musk. They were also like, they didn't have to do an interview with me. They didn't have to
Yeah.
even talk to me. And they did.
Yeah.
And like these are like some of the richest, most,
Yeah.
up there people in the world. They really don't have to give me the time of day, but they did. That
That's
says a
because you
lot.
were there. You were there. You were at the right place. You're right there watching the rocket take off. You're at that. Was it a rooftop or something? I don't know
It
where
was
you
a
were.
rooftop. It's probably because I was on crutches and they felt a little bad for me. Maybe, I don't know.
No, but like you're physically there. You're actually covering the news,
Yeah.
live. You've done a number of live streams where you're like, you know, going out there and you're running around. And then the funniest one was you're, he, what was that the one where you totally missed the rocket to
Yes,
take off?
that movie is
You're like
finally,
talking.
just saw the trailer for it. So I was talking about a movie that they were filming
Yeah.
down at, Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And I was rambling on about this movie, waiting for the rocket to launch behind me. And
Yeah.
it launched, and I basically missed the rocket launch. And I turned around and I was like, oh shit, because the
It
sound was,
wasn't terrible. It
oh,
wasn't
it's
terrible.
fun.
You made a bigger deal because it was actually like, yeah, you missed it, but I mean, it was like by the time you turned around, it was still going up, so it was
But
perfect.
they also happen all the time. So who cares? Like people were like, really pressed about it. And I'm like, I thought it was funny. But that movie is finally coming out in theaters. So I guess I have to watch it. Channing Tatum, Scarlett Johansson. Um,
Okay.
so now I feel like, okay, I wasn't crazy. There actually is a movie. But that short has almost 1 million views.
hmm
So
I don't know if you'll remember this clip, but there's like one of the best, most perfectly timed newscast. I don't remember who
yes,
the guy
where
was.
he's
Do you know this?
successful.
So he was like talking, and then right when he goes like that, and then it took off or something.
I need to make a side by side of that with me
Yeah.
missing it and him pointing to it,
No,
because
that's
I've had a lot
perfect.
of people bring that up. And I'm telling you,
That was
it's so funny because, I doubt myself all the time because I don't have a
good.
background in this. Yet,
Mhm.
I share like the ditziest clip of me trying to like be an expert in this field. But, it's funny. We have to be able to make fun of ourselves. That's for sure.
That's funny you say that actually, Ali, because you're the most professional of all of us. You bring that gravitas because of your background. I did an interview you before when I just started this channel, long
Yeah.
time ago, maybe a year, 2 years ago. And I'll encourage you, if you're watching this still, if you go check that video, I put Ellie on the spot. I said, okay, right now, go introduce me. And you did your reporter voice and you were just perfect. Just perfect, like professional in the way that your reporter voice.
Good
So
evening,
go
everyone.
ahead. Can I do that to you?
Yes, yes,
Do your,
yes.
use your reporter voice right now to say that we're ending the interview now.
All right, folks. Well, that will wrap it up here for us on the evening news here at 5 p.m. Thanks for joining Herbert and I as we cover the exciting and ever-changing world of Tesla and SpaceX. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Stay classy, Tri-Cities.
Do you miss being a reporter?
Dude, I have dreams about being an anchor. I've had like 20 dreams.
Still?
Yes.
Now? After
Yes.
you've left, after you're doing what you're doing?
That's the thing. These dreams, I have just gone back into the news business. For some reason, I had to go back, be an anchor at the same station, and I always miss the newscast. And I was never late to a newscast, but it's like in my dream, I'm back in news and I always miss the show. And I make a huge rookie mistake right on the first day being back. And it's like, it's weird how like ingrained this news station is in my subconscious. I don't know what's going on.
Interesting.
Yeah, I miss it sometimes. I mean, I miss sort of having like a big studio and, people to film and work the teleprompter and a producer and,
You're going to manifest this. It's going to happen. And you know what? You're going to be the person that's going to report on the landing on the moon.
Yeah.
And remember our deal? We made a deal.
Yeah.
You pinky squared that if you get to go to the moon, I get to be the video camera guy. I'll hold the camera.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're right. I currently, it is very much a dream job, but it is very lonely and isolating. And I kind of wish that I had a crew. So you're right. Why can't I? Why can't I manifest having the same setup that I had in news and an actual show? Maybe it'll happen.
It'll be your own show. Thank you so much, Ellie. That was a blast. Follow her on YouTube at Ellie in Space. As you saw, she interviews the most incredible people. She's very professional and she's funny too. So thank you so much, Ellie. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.